things that we grapple with is, how do you justify the existence of a rhino to someone who's living on 40 cents a day?
Yeah, it's a tough question.
Across, looking through a game fence. This is a real challenge. We sort of indulge in the existence of that animal and say it's globally important. But the person through there struggling to scratch a living out of a piece of dry country, it's a difficult one. It's a real challenge. And Ol Pejeta and all the conservancies, we've got over half the country's black rhino population in Laikipia under intense protection because of the threat from the rhino horn. You cannot assume that anyone can just have wild animals on their land, especially when it's something like a lion or an elephant or a buffalo, because those animals kill people, destroy their livelihoods. Elephants at the moment are destroying crops. You'll have your grain store from your fields, and if it wasn't eaten before you harvested, then the elephants in the dry season will come and they'll just rip the roof off that grain store and eat your grain. How do you link conservation in a conservancy setting to conservation in a populated, desperately poor smallholder or pastoralist group ranch setting? What is conservation? Is conservation the sort of putting in cotton wool with massive resources of particular species, or is it something bigger? And we're really trying to grapple with that. The global climate change one is one way of talking about being a global citizen. But the global climate change one, we're seeing a very interesting dynamic here. People say we're suffering because people on the other side of the world are doing something. And you may say, in class, to students or adults, we've got to stop doing this because the poor people on the other side of the planet, we're just making them poorer. As one way, a sort of guilt thing. We also know here in Africa that bush fires and grass fires, which are not the best thing in the world for grass and bush, probably create more greenhouse gases than, or as much as America. But no one talks about it. So Al Gore's Inconvenient Truth was his, wasn't it?
Yes.
Well, we have ours too. But for us, we're doing really well, but there's no government protected area here. This is all private land. It belongs to communities and ranchers. So there's something special going on here. We feel that, and in a way it's a conservation success, the catastrophic declines in the country, and we're doing well. We're going against the flow. We feel that, and in fact it's recognised, government asks us to sit and advise on things, particularly how do you involve the people? How do people benefit? What is the process of devolution? How do you decentralise these issues? Wildlife is owned by the state, and so on and so forth. And in writing national policy and law, there's a lot of lessons coming out of this. What we try and do as an organisation is find best practice within our membership. And our membership are ranchers, community groups, tourism operators, scientific research organisations, development NGOs, conservation NGOs. We've got government on our board. We cut across all ethnic groups. We've got a lot of ethnic groups here, wealth strata, different. That's our membership. Trying to draw out of everyone their resources, their knowledge, their energy to tackle these fundamentally important things for everyone. Life, simply. I'm just talk about this simplistically, but that's what it's about. So a leopard or a lion or an elephant, if you've got issues around those animals, but you believe it's important that they persist long into the future, beyond simply just like economic gain from photographic tourism, but for more deeper, more fundamental reasons, then you've got to sort out any issues around those. And when we analyse it, it's all people issues. These animals must bring benefit because we are now consumer animals ourselves, and that's the cash thing. So photographic tourism is one way, and it's our only way currently to really extract meaningful benefit out of wild animals. But that at the same time will give us a reason to have those animals for all the other important reasons that we don't yet fully understand, to do with biodiversity and life. And it will help us if we can get that economy of tourism spreading. It'll create more tolerated space for wild animals. We, and an old Pej will have explained to you that the bread and butter is their livestock, and the cream is the tourism. And of course, it's a thick layer of cream when you've got on that, when you've got a great season. But with our politics here, it can go away.
Yeah.
And the cows can keep working. So the either-or thing is just not sensible in terms of as business risk management. But then running them together takes a bit of thinking, and the BOMA thing is part of that, definitely. And then these grazing greens. We would have used that word. Did they use that word? A grazing green. So you imagine a golf green. If you look on those grassland areas, it's all very short grass. It's just bright green and short after the first rain.
Beautiful, yeah.
Beautiful. A lot of wildlife on it. You'll find areas where there are intense green patches, like old BOMA sites, and those are a honeypot for grazers, because you've got this high nutrients from the old BOMA, from the manure, and this sweet preferential grass. So you get preferential grazing, and in a way, it may be reinforcing, because now you've got a higher density of animals there, so you're getting more nutrients on that spot at the same time, and you create a grazing green. And so you can use your mobile BOMAs and move them around strategically to areas that, for example, visitors who are driving down the roads, not allowed to go off the road, you could suck wildlife in closer for better visitor experience. The final one is we have a program called Security, which was simply the need to get everyone in communication in a way that they could deal with some of the threats that people were facing in this area, particularly in the past, cattle raiding and so on and so forth. So that simply was a radio network, puts membership with the government, key wings of government in communication with each other, so that if some baddies from elsewhere came to steal their cows or do something, shoot an elephant or whatever, people could communicate and there could be a response across this landscape. Mobile phones have moved in, so mobile phones, thankfully, hopefully we can turn that radio network off, because it's a big management challenge. But the notion of communication for people's well-being and security. Also, having a secure setting is incredibly important for investment. And we're constantly trying to create, as my colleague in the room next door says, an environment worth investing in. That's his mantra. He runs the community conservation program, an environment worth investing in. So if this was a completely degraded and destroyed place, no one would come here. Why? Whereas if it's a functioning, healthy, beautiful, productive place, it sucks people in, and that's good. That's what we want. And security is a key part of that. Something that we've been quite slow to get onto, but we're picking up momentum now, is being strategic about the actual conservation in the conventional sense of wildlife species. So rather than having conservation strategies for rhino, for elephant, for Grevy's zebra, wild dog, lion, leopard, etc., the way we're taking it is, we need a conservation strategy for Lycipians, not for the Grevy's zebra, but for the people, but in relation to those different species. And it pulls together a lot of what I've been talking about already. What are the ways to mitigate conflict, if that's a conflict species that creates conflict? What is the desire of the people of Laikipia? We can't assume that everyone wants to live with wildlife. Or would they live with wildlife if? So as a strategy, then we can begin to work on filling those gaps, if that's something desirable. So thinking it like this, so they will have very clear specific, species-specific components, but it'll broadly be a strategic approach to doing things better and doing it more. Okay? But it will be their strategy. It'll be simple. It'll be theirs. It's not conservation NGOs, for example, can't do conservation by definition, because conservation is done by people. Development NGOs is the same. They can only facilitate a process or coordinate and facilitate a process up to a point, but the actual action has to be done by some warm body that has a very clear vested interest in it. You know, and in our context, it's the people on whose land all this stuff is. It's theirs. So it must be developed by them. But I would say the profession of conservation should no longer be seen as about saving animals or saving trees or saving the planet. Maybe we could say about saving the planet, but it's about saving humanity, actually. That's what conservation is. And we need all these other things. And at school we need to be taught that from the beginning. So that whether you're a banker, or a lawyer, a farmer, whoever you are, you've got it. You've got those basic principles that come back to sustainability and being a global citizen. I think that's what conservation ought to be. This interface is about the people who use the resource and how they will be able to use the resource sustainably forever. This is where it's at. This is what conservation actually is.